Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cyber Weekly. This week's episode is special because just as women, strong women, are following a very great Women's Month. So today we come in strong with a very insightful security review. Please take a listen and enjoy.
Yes, good morning. Hi, Angela. How are you doing?
Hi, Josephine. I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I hope you have had a good week.
Yes, I have. Hope you have had one too.
Yes, thank you. So I guess we'll get started.
Yes.
So I think it's me asking.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the signal leak and how it happened?
Okay, so Signal is a messaging app, just like WhatsApp, that has privacy and encryption at its forefront. Signal is owned by two American co-owners. There is Moxie Marlin Spike uh, and also Brian Acton, who is a former co-founder of WhatsApp. So the Signal link happened when high-profile US government officials shared, I would say, classified information about Yemen strikes, and it got leaked. So Mike Waltz, who's a senior security advisor, took ownership of the leak, and he said it was his fault because he's the one who set up the Signal group where this information was leaked. So what happened was there were government officials, and then a journalist was added to the group. He says he doesn't know how the journalist was added, but it also goes to show how people should be careful in how they do their work, and also the information that is shared on these messaging apps. So that's about it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So it wasn't complicated security leak as such. It was just someone perhaps adding the journalist incorrectly, and then the journalist, of course, then displayed everything.
Apparently,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And what security measures should be in place to prevent leaks of classified information, such as military information, financial information?
So, firstly, organizations should really be strict on how communication is handled. There should be security policies that only allow employees to use secure communication channels, and that should be spelled out in their policies. So first, because you could have Signal has end-to-end encryption, but only secures data in transit. So we have to secure data at the endpoint. So we don't know if some of the devices had like spyware, malware, and that's how the information was leaked, or there was unauthorized access to a member's device, and that's how this information was leaked. So security measures like like preventing screenshots being taken in secure messaging apps. Commonly we've seen Netflix has that you can't screenshot content of Netflix. So there should be such measures that can be that need to be implemented, where like data can't be extracted, whether manually, and also using secure authorized communication channels, encrypted emails to communicate company information. Yes.
Okay, so you talked about Signal having end-to-end encryption, but can it really protect messages if, for instance, the endpoint device is compromised?
That's it, because end-to-end encryption only secures messages in transit. So they have to be measures at the endpoint to secure this data further. They should be encrypted backups so that because if the data is stored in an unsecure way, people can access the backups and get the information. Also, metadata exposure can also lead to such data leakages, because the metadata will show whom you contacted to and what time, and this data can be manipulated by the adversaries. So they should be end-to-end encryption should be also boosted by organizations investing into trainings of like social engineering and insider threats, because if an employee is social engineered into like maybe clicking a link and malware is installed, still the data will be leaked. So there should be investment in employee training for an improved security posture.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. That makes sense.
Yes. So to you, Josephine, could you please tell us about the Oracle Cloud data breach that happened on March 21st, 2025?
Yeah, so on that day, a cyber attack targeted Oracle Cloud, which led to about 6 million records being exfiltrated from its single sign-on and its lightweight directly access systems. I think it affects around 140,000 enterprises, and the stolen data included Java key store files, the encrypted single sign-on and LDAP credentials, key files, and Enterprise Manager Java platform security keys. The threat actor, who is identified as Rose 87168, claimed responsibility for the breach and stated that it was because there's a vulnerability in Oracle Cloud's login infrastructure, this vulnerability apparently was a known flaw in Oracle Access Manager. It allows authenticated remote code execution over HTTP. So even though they patched the vulnerability in 2022, the unpatched middleware may have enabled the attacker to gain initial access. I think they say the attacker demanded payment from the affected companies, for data removal, and they've offered incentives in decrypting stolen credentials. The FBI has initiated investigations into the attack. Oracle has alerted healthcare customers about the breach, but it also noted that hackers didn't access. They're claiming that the breach wasn't on the Oracle Cloud platform, that it was on the older servers, which had patient data, but which hadn't been migrated to the Oracle Cloud Storage Service. Apparently, Oracle became aware of the breach on February 20th. They really still are denying the breach. They're still saying there has been no breach of Oracle Cloud. The published credentials are not for Oracle Cloud. No Oracle Cloud customers have experienced a breach or lost any data. Of course, this denial is in contrast to evidence which has been presented by the cybersecurity researchers, which have basically raised concerns about Oracle's transparency. Because yes, it's technically true if there's no breach on Oracle Cloud, but there has been a breach. And of course, the breach has exposed significant information which pose significant threats, which include unauthorized access, etc. So, of course, it's one of those. There's been a breach. FBI is involved, but Oracle still denying
it. That's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting because if the evidence shows that you were breached, why would you deny? And then also I read an article that there's an exponential rise in ransomware currently. So That's something to look out for. And if the attackers truly obtain Java key store files and encrypted credentials, how should they use this data? How could this data be used?
So I think what is important is that these files are encrypted, right? And the credentials are encrypted. But we all know that if the attackers have managed to get the files and the encrypted credentials, they can still try and gain access to these credentials. We've heard of brute force attack, where even though the credentials have been encrypted and they are protected, they can still be, if the attackers use they use specialized software and they try many combinations, they can often crack the encryption. So how effective that encryption depends on the strength of the of the encryption and the complexity of the passwords that have been used. Of course, once they decrypt rather, then they have access to sensitive systems. And of course, because the Java key store files stores cryptographic keys, including the private keys which are used for the encryption, the encryption and decryption and digital signatures. If the attackers obtain these private keys, then they can decrypt everything, the sensitive data, and all that. Also, Java keys files can sometimes contain keys for the SSL TLS certificates, the encryption of data in transit between on the web. So the attackers can also can decrypt this web traffic by intercepting data that is transmitted over the web. So I think the issue here is even if things have been encrypted, if the encryption is not very strong enough to protect the credentials, then it's easier for the attackers to crack. And of course, it's so important that keys are managed safely. You protect them and then limit access to things which are files which are critical.
Exactly. And you mentioned that the attackers were giving incentives for anyone who could decrypt. And in this recession, let's pray nothing happened.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Yeah.
So Oracle has denied the breach. How often do companies downplay cybersecurity incidents, and what should users do when faced with conflicting reports?
Yeah, I think it's so unfortunate that companies always downplay security for cybersecurity, but of course you can understand what this means for them. One is the reputational damage. They're most companies these days are concerned because of how we operate. Kind of, it's like companies now operate in the open. One bad thing on your brand, your reputation goes down, and that is because that's such a high value now to companies. So of course they're concerned about the negative impact of a public breach that can have on their reputation, that can have on their customers trusting them, being able to trust them or not, and also on their, especially if you're a listed company, what your stock price can mean. So they try to downplay sometimes something that's really severe. If something attack is severe, they try to really downplay it so that they limit the panic and they also limit the loss of confidence. And of course, with breaches, you can't escape the legal and financial side of it, because a breach can lead to people suing you, and of course it can lead to, if you're regulated, regulatory fines. Actually, most companies now are regulated because they have by regulation relating to their storage of data, and there are many penalties that can be involved. So the companies like Oracle try to downplay so that they limit their liabilities, and they want to maintain customer confidence, of course, because business really now rely on customers trusting them. And if they acknowledge that there's been a breach, then it's easy to lose customers as a result. And sometimes it's not easy for companies to come out publicly because sometimes they don't know what has happened. They know something has happened, but it's like
they don't understand it fully.
don't understand it fully. So you're like buying time. You're also trying to investigate and trying to find out what happened. Um, and they want to limit the information that goes out because they don't want to give out information which is not correct. Because if you do release information as a company, then of course it means that whatever that information is, you can become liable for it. Yeah. And also you don't want to, sometimes you don't want to reveal sensitive data. So I think, you don't want to come out and say, this is what happened. And then with more investigation, more information, then you go and change your statement. So sometimes it's about buying time so that you're giving a clearer picture of what happened. So I think what can users, I think you asked about what users can do, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think if I'm a user of that company and something like that happens, whether or not it's true, I would check myself again. I think it's important that you make the assumption that the attack has happened. So do whatever you need to do. You change your passwords, improve your security, perhaps. And when I say
have
use
multi-factor.
Exactly, have multi-factor authentication, and if this user is a company, maybe start monitor activities and and monitor accounts to see whether there's anything suspicious. It's good to also do the research and look for authorized sources of information, because sometimes you might get information and it is one source of information, but not verified by other credible agencies, or like say an FBI or whatever, maybe independent security researchers. But I think it's more about you being proactive and assuming the worst case. And it's a great opportunity to review your security, because oftentimes we make assumptions that what we have in place is enough, but some of these are things we can check you and say, hey, by the way, we haven't reviewed this in a while, we haven't done this in a while. Let's step up our security practices. Let's check that our devices, our software are all updated, that our passwords are strong. Maybe you haven't put password checks, make sure people are having to change passwords more frequently. Your backups are working, maybe you test your backups. You're raising awareness amongst your employees about suspicious emails, suspicious links. So these are all opportunities to check ourselves. And of course, there's always recommendations of what you can do. You can also pick up on those from say, the people like FBI, who are telling you what you should do to protect yourselves, to protect your accounts. So it is important. It is something that users can do. Don't assume it won't happen because it's Oracle or because it's a big organization. Assume that it has happened, and then review your security practices again.
Yes. And you mentioned something funny, that sometimes you don't even know what happened. So, so funny.
You're still trying to find out what's going on. Yeah.
Because in our conversation with one of the CISOs, Stephen Mwesegwa, he said there's a time they had an incident. So he explained everything to management and they approved our budget. So one of the participants from the management were like, I hope we don't get hacked again. And it's like, I'm doing my best to improve the security posture, but there are 0-day attacks. You're only as safe as that day. So sometimes management, IT and security teams are also stuck in that place. They have to exactly happen. Meanwhile, the incident has already happened and maybe it's still going on and it still happens. So giving out statements early it's not easy.
Yeah, that's true. So so then in conclusion, as we conclude, what do you think are the common mistakes that organizations are making that lead to these types of breaches?
So like the communication breaches, I'll feel like there are no proper policies that spell out how devices are managed at the workplace. and how people use them. People shouldn't use personal devices to communicate official information. So firstly, that should be spelled out, and also there should be secure communication channels, encrypted emails, and also the funny thing is that I have friends who have like work WhatsApp groups, and sometimes information is just posted on the work WhatsApp groups, but you find that not everyone needs to be privy to all information. So companies should be very vigilant with the zero trust and minimum privilege when it even comes to information access, because sometimes you may post it and not everyone needs to know everything at all the time. So there should be that criteria in how information is handled in a company. So there should also be strong access control, multi-factor authentication, strong passwords for devices, and checking traffic to see who is accessing systems and what time at what time, and that should be for all user accounts. So to prevent such leaks, and also to prevent attacks from going on for so long. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
Yes. So, and how can companies and governments improve transparency and incident response when facing cyber threats, Josephine?
Okay, I think working together is important. But I think for companies, I think having a really, really good incident response plan is important. I know we often say we've got our BCP in place, we've got our this disaster recovery, etc., but I don't know whether enough companies are putting in place a really comprehensive incident response plan, especially in response to a cyber attack. I think a plan like this should have very, very clear responsibilities for how cyber incidents are handled. So, and these plans should be regularly tested, because I think sometimes with cyber, the incident it can paralyze a company. So it's so important that it's clear that people are not running around. I don't want to say this, like headless chicken.
Yeah, when
Where
something
nobody
happens, everyone's
knows
like, whoop.
where nobody knows what to do, who should say,
Mhm.
who should talk to the press, who should do that. So it should be very
Exactly.
clear. It should be very clear in the plan. Who, like for instance, who are your stakeholders? Now, if you're a
Mm,
company and you've got your stakeholders are your regulator, your employees, your customers, whatever, your
mm,
investors, you should be very clear on the protocols around how to communicate and who should
mm,
communicate. Of course, it's so important that you try and be as transparent as possible, and you try and give information in a timely and accurate information. I think sometimes, even if you don't know how the full extent of the incident, just
mm,
telling people that we have been breached without giving any
mm,
information, you can actually
mm,
inform, so that the
mm,
breach isn't being found out by customers through other sources. I think
mm,
so. What happened with the incident with the financial system, where uh, the news media started reporting that
mm,
the system, the RTG system, whatever it was, had been
mm,
breached,
mm,
and everybody started thinking, oh my God, there's been a
mm,
cyber attack. And then suddenly there was this lack of confidence with, especially in financial industry, about the systems, until,
mm,
uh, BOU stepped in and said there had been an incident. But it took
mm,
a while for that to happen. So prioritizing that transparency in communication, and
mm,
having it timely, so that
mm,
we're not getting it from other sources.
mm.
Because the more you downplay it, the more people start thinking, but why are they not saying anything?
They're
It's
hiding
a bigger,
something.
yes, it erodes the trust of the customers.
Mm,
Of course, you need to have the infrastructure in place, as you said.
mm,
You've talked about end-to-end encryption in your communication. You've talked about endpoint data device encryption, but all those controls need to be in place because you're not going to have strong cyber measures without the technology. Yes, you're going to have, you need to have the other layers, but the base layer needs to be the technology. So your firewalls, your intrusion detection systems, your data encryption, your regular audits to know that those are working, and your vulnerability assessments, and then having the employees being aware as well, and training them. So once you need to be able to also have that culture where employees are aware that if something happens or something suspicious, that they're willing to report it. So if people are afraid they're not going to report, they won't report. So you want people to own it, to own that security is about me and my role to support my organization to ensure that if something bad happens, I can report it without feeling that I'll be what?
The weakest link.
I'll be under fear or anything like that. And then so also to have to be able to share, I think within the financial industry, there's very good sharing of information, especially within the banks. So sharing initiatives so that you know what kind of threats are emerging within your industry, and then working with other agencies so that they can also help you investigate and respond to cyber incidents. A lot of agencies, especially in Uganda, don't necessarily have that technical knowledge about things, but getting them to the stage where they understand what the impacts of these things are is important. Of course, as with any incident, any plans, it's also important to be able to do post-incident reviews if you're lucky to come out of it in one piece. So it's like, what happened? Where did we fail? What are the learning lessons that we need to do? Now, with government, I think government should really be I think with government, it's like they have to make sure that there are very clear reporting requirements. Yeah. So I know that with say, for instance, the central bank mandates that if there is an incident, it has to be reported within 48 hours. Yeah. So they need to provide very clear guidelines around what also about report, not just about what reporting means, but also what can be reported, what constitutes something that needs to be reported. Yeah. Yes. And I think government should also promote information sharing. They should promote that collaboration of companies that allows us to respond almost as a country. Yeah. So that there is collaboration between the companies, the agencies, the partners, international partners, so that we can exchange best practices and lessons shared. And again, government has a role about policies, national policies, yeah, and so that they can develop policies which are strong and which allow for the industry to be regulated with standards, etc. So I think government has work to do, and it would be nice if you saw government playing a big role in helping with research and development into what can be considered improved techniques to work, to address these threats. But it will also be good to know, like, what is government doing to collaborate with international partners, because increasingly cyber threats are not confined to a region. They're global. And you saw with the Bank of Uganda incident that the money didn't sit in Uganda when it was. It went to Japan, went to
London,
it went all over the place. So having that collaboration with international partners, so that when incidents like this happen, you can combat them more quickly and address those crimes, which are now, as I said, global. Yeah, I think those are good things that government can do, and of course, running public awareness campaign. As I said, the Bank of Uganda, in collaboration with the United Bankers Association, they've been running campaigns about people being aware how they can lose money. So I think those campaigns help, because a lot of the the more vulnerable communities don't necessarily have access to some of the information that perhaps corporate people have. So if you have wild campaigns which can touch your grandma, your aunties and aunties in the villages, so that they know what this cyber thing is, so that if somebody comes and says, I can pay you 50,000 for your national ID, they're less likely to do it, right? To be fooled by that. So I think if this by implementing these strategies, companies and governments can really improve their ability to detect, to protect, and to respond to cyber threats.
Thank you so much, Josephine. Very insightful, and also to disseminate, because sometimes they will do it, develop all those things, and then not go to that grassroots. But thank you so much for that. It has been so insightful. We've had such a great episode. We shall also link Stephen's episode in our description box. Thank you so much for listening and coming this far. Please follow the Cyber Weekly on all social media platforms. Please comment, engage with us. And thank you for listening. See you in the next one.
Thank you, Angela, and well hosted.